Part B, Making the Ovolo. The following tools are required for this part of the exercise. A squared block of stone of approximately 300 by 220 by 120 millimeters, or 12 by 8.5 by 4 3/4 inches. The basic masonry chisels mentioned previously, a mallet and hammer, a scribe, a rule, a masonry straight edge, an adjustable or sinking square, a hard, well-sharpened pencil, a bevel or mason's angle finder, and the template made in Part A of this exercise. Having made the template, the banker work is now ready to begin. Place the stone horizontally and apply the template to one end as shown. Use the scribe to mark the lines of the section. Keeping the template in the same orientation, apply it to the other end of the stone and repeat the marking process. The template should be applied in this fashion at all the places identified in the drawing, turning the stone as required. Using the trammel or adjustable square, connect the lines of the top and bottom fillets. The lines may also be marked by using a scribe and straight edge. It can help to emphasize the lines by darkening them with a sharp pencil. If moved, turn the stone back to its original position. Position a 45-degree square or adjustable bevel at one end of the stone and adjust it to approximately 45 degrees. Slide the bevel so that the blade is tangential to the arc of the section and draw a pencil line along this angle. Mark the corresponding angle in pencil as per the section template. Connect all the lines top and bottom. This creates an angled or beveled line. Once the waste stone has been removed, the angled stone of the beveled edge is referred to as a chamfer. Typically, a 12mm or 1/2-inch chisel is used to remove the waste from the corner of the stone. A pitcher is very useful in removing large amounts of stone quickly, but may also cause damage when used incorrectly. Prior to pitching, a safety cut is worked close to the line to prevent the pitch cut from fracturing below the required surface. The pitcher is held slightly above the line and struck sharply. Ideally, a fracture will cause one or more large pieces of waste to be removed with one strike. Here, 3 pieces of waste are created. As a precaution, stop the chisel 50mm or several inches from the end of the stone. Resume cutting from the opposite direction. A V-shaped safety cut is made to encourage the stone to break along the desired line. Continuing through to the end of the stone in one direction risks causing the stone to fracture and chip. Previously, when working drafts, this was not a problem as the ends were already completed. Taking care not to remove too much waste, the chisel passes over the stone several times. This reduces the amount of waste prior to using the claw chisel. The 1/2-inch chisel is now used to cut in at the line. Now the claw removes much of the waste, flattening the rough surface. Changing back to the 1/2-inch chisel, the stone is worked from the opposite end. Repeat the process at the other end of the chamfer, again using the claw to remove the waste. The stone is worked diagonally with the bowster. A small flat surface on a 45-degree diagonal plane is required, following the upper and lower lines. Work both corners flat. The claw chisel is used to lower the raised area in the center. The stone is lowered to a depth that can be dealt with by the bowster. Take care not to fall below the line. Once the entire surface has been completed with the claw chisel, the chamfer may now be finished with the bowster. Work the bowster on a 45-degree angle, alternating the direction of the strike. This is a very efficient way to flatten the surface. The only area of the chamfer needing to be completed is the midsection. Using a sink square and pencil, mark lines at right angles to the fillets. Draw a line along the chamfer, connecting these two lines. Extreme care is needed when cutting the fillets. The force used to strike the chisel should be reduced, as there is the possibility of breaking the edge of the fillet. At this point, a carving dummy may be used in place of a mallet. A larger, heavier dummy is more effective. When viewing the decreasing chamfer size, it becomes apparent that a curve in masonry is created using a series of ever-narrowing flattened surfaces. Now the work is from above with the half-inch chisel. Note that now it's used at a more upright angle than before. Carefully cut along the top fillet line, taking care not to gouge the stone and removing too much material. The aim here is to concentrate on cutting as near to the line as possible, following the line that is drawn on the chamfer. In the same manner as the first draft, leave the inner area of the cut high on the first pass. Concentrate only on cutting to the line. Alternate passes from the vertical and horizontal lines, working them to gradually form a right angle. The shape of the fillets is defined at each end prior to commencing on the center of the fillet. Occasionally, it may be necessary to alternate the type of mallet used, depending on the style of the cut and the impact required. Changing to the inch chisel, the lower draft is flattened. Frequently check the flatness of each plane using the straight edge. Tidy the tooling marks with the bowster and a small hammer, or dummy. In this instance, the blade of the bowster is not angled but parallel to the inside line of the fillet. Short, sharp taps with the hammer will produce the best results. Repeat the process on the other fillet. It is possible at this stage to turn the stone to a more comfortable position for working. There will be times when this is not possible, either because of the shape of the stone being cut or because of its weight. It's good practice to get used to adjusting your stance instead. Continue to reduce the angles. This is necessary to produce an ovolo, and it will begin to resemble a many-sided polygon. Adjust the bevel to create an angle that divides one corner and is also tangential to the arc of the ovolo. Mark the face of the chamfer. Mark the same angle on the other end of the stone and connect the two angles with pencil lines, top and bottom. A Dremel may be used to ensure a consistent depth of marked lines. Using a 1-inch chisel, cut neatly to the line at each end and work a careful draft between the line. Repeat this process on the other angle. In a similar manner, mark and cut smaller chamfers on all the remaining corners. After removing the many narrow chamfers, note that an almost smooth curve has been created. The small ridges are reduced with gentle taps of a 1/2-inch chisel. To finish the ovolo, it is necessary to tool over the surface with the bowster. Again, turn the blade of the bowster so that it's parallel with the moulding. Start near the center of the ovolo and work upwards towards the top fillet. Hold the shank of the bowster at a shallow angle. This way the blade will remove almost no material at all, only lightly skim over the surface. Keep a downward pressure on the chisel to prevent the chisel bouncing. Use a gentle but fast tapping action. Once the top portion of the ovolo is complete, reverse the direction of work so that the bowster is moving downwards towards the lower fillet. In order to do this, it may be necessary to lean uncomfortably over the top of the work. The first ovolo is now complete. Turn the stone 180 degrees in order to work on the opposite side. First is the internal miter. Use a 1/2-inch chisel to remove the waste from the corner of the stone, as per the first chamfer. Do not use the pitcher. Stop cutting approximately 1 inch or 25 millimeters from the internal corner. Work in the same manner on the other axis of the moulding. At the longer end of the moulding, a flat area is created as per the first chamfer. It is now necessary to work a flat area as near as possible to the internal mitre. The cut of the chisel will be perpendicular to the previous direction of work. Using an adjustable square, mark the fillets on the sides of the stone and the internal splays of the chamfer. Cut right to the line, top and bottom of the chamfer. Working on the small draft, carefully inspect the surface with a small straight edge or metal rule. It's helpful to put a pencil mark at the top and bottom of the cut, marking its deepest point. It's only between these 2 points that the straight edge should be placed. There are now 2 points of reference and the chamfer may be worked as normal. Where the shorter axis meets the internal mitre, the moulding falls away to nothing. Therefore it is not possible to work 2 flat reference points as with the previous section. Instead, the small surface must be worked by following the top and side lines of the chamfer with the bowster after enough waste has been removed. There will now be a small raised area of waste stone left in the corner of the mitre. Starting with a 1/2 inch chisel and moving on to the bowster, finish the internal mitre of the chamfer by frequently alternating the direction of work and carefully chipping away at the waste stone. The angle of the bowster will need to be rotated slightly as it comes into the crease of the mitre. This will also neaten the line. Square the short fillet using a square from the side. Using the same method as was used on the chamfer, that is, working from both directions, the smaller angles are now completed. This area of the stone can also be finished with the bowster. However, extra care is needed around the crease of the mitre. The short section of moulding with a stop end is created in a similar manner to the previous exercise, but without the difficulty of creating the internal mitre. The main difference being the perpendicular flat area which forms the stop. Create a safety cut along the lines of the stop end in order to prevent the accidental removal of material. Beginning at the open end of the moulding where the template is marked, continue to work the moulding as before, checking for accuracy with the sinking square. As the chisel approaches the stop end, the force used on the mallet must decrease. This is to prevent breaking through the stop end of the stone. It is necessary to alternate the work from the moulding to the stop end frequently. This is in order to remove all of the waste stone. The flat area of the stop is finished in the same way as the corner of a flat surface, albeit that the direction of cut is perpendicular. The bowster is used to follow both the horizontal and perpendicular lines. The final stage of the project is to create the 2 external mitres as well as the Ovolo moulding between them. The original stone with the markings has been removed, however the lines marking the top and bottom of the chamfer remain in place. The following technique is needed to draw the section onto the now curved surface. From the line marking the top fillet, draw a line at 90 degrees downwards using the sinking square. With a metal ruler, measure in the distance of the fillet, 10 mm or 1/2 inch, at the bottom of the fillet and mark it on. The tool known as a mitre board is now used in conjunction with a sinking square to draw the remainder of the Ovolo section. The mitre board is simply a piece of wood that is both flat and straight. For a moulding of this size, the mitre board should be approximately 600 by 100 mm or 24 by 4 inches. The board should be strong enough to resist bending. Position the board against the blade of the sinking square to ensure that it's upright. Using the other hand, place a well-sharpened pencil against the mitre board. Adjust the top of the board, making the pencil touch the point of the top mitre. Likewise, adjust the base of the board in order that the pencil may mark the lower point also. The base of the board may be moved with a leg or hip. This process does take practice to master. Adjust both ends of the board until a pencil can mark the top and bottom points of the fillets. Carefully draw a line between the two. Repeat this process to mark on the second external miter. At this point, it is useful to apply the section template to the corner of a spare piece of stone, scribing on the lines of the section as a reference. Using a bull-nosed chisel, work 2 small drafts between the top and bottom lines of the chamfer, a few inches or 50 mm away from each corner. Using a bevel, check that the drafts are at the correct angle of 45 degrees. Cut into the remainder of the chamfer lines and remove the waste stone between the 2 small drafts. Carefully work between the 2 drafts with a bowster. This must be checked frequently with a short straight edge that will fit between the 2 drafts. A piece of zinc sheet that is cut to length is frequently used. Once the area between the 2 drafts has been flattened, then the chamfer may be extended in one direction towards a miter. Start by bringing the high points nearer to the lines of the miters. Use a 1/2 inch chisel followed by the claw tool, working inwards away from the miter ends. Extra care should be taken when finishing the internal miter. Where the small chamfers meet in the crease of the miter, the chisel must be turned slightly to avoid cutting away more of the miter than intended. Instead, near the end of the chamfer, the bowster blade must be turned up and around, keeping a careful eye on the miter line, and use it as a guide. Make a final check for accuracy with the straight edge and the piece is finished.